By the way, I read a really it was inspiring. There were also parts of it that were depressing, but overall, it was a speech that Alexander Solzhenitsyn gave in 1983, and it just it completely applies to today. You can read that, and there are some things that are going to make you feel depressed, but there are also some inspiring things in it. I'll make sure I'll send you the link, Carter, so we can put it
Okay.
in our show links for today because I think people might get something out of it. But
Yeah.
just speaking of, communism, at one point he says he's talking about communism's attack on Christianity, and he's talking about uh, this idea that communism is allowed to thrive when people have forgotten God. I don't think he quotes Nietzsche, but he's definitely drawing from Nietzsche. And then at one point he talks about how the countries where communism has taken root and the countries where things have become very bad and you start to see mass oppression of people, that those are the countries where the Christian community is starting to thrive and grow underground.
Mhm.
And I think that's true. If we look at communist China, look at the Uyghurs, look at the Christians, the underground Christians in China, and how committed they are. It's that cyclical thing, right? Where I think people, when you're in a country where you have it very good for many generations, and people get a bit lazy in their whatever their beliefs are, whatever their principles are, they become comfortable, and that can allow for culturally very bad ideas to take root and gain popularity because people don't have as much grounding anymore in whatever it is that they believe. And and then when things start to get bad, it it has this effect, I think, where people start to, like, look at the stories of Marxist atheists who found God in a gulag. You know, when you're in dark times, I think people start to look for truth and meaning and purpose and what's really important, or people can start to. And so this speech by Solzhenitsyn was a little bit like that, and he was saying there's one inspiring thing I saw as a Christian, and maybe you'll find inspiring, Carter, as an atheist who appreciates
Mhm.
Christianity, was he said, communism tries it might will never stamp out Christianity. Because he was almost pointing to the fact that when in these countries where these totalitarian ideologies take hold, the more they try to root things out, the more they provoke a revival of sorts.
Yeah, I do think that communism can never root out Christianity because communism can't actually sustain itself because it's a flawed system. Um, but I think if you
Right.
look at if you look at any form of authoritarianism, be it communism or fascism or whatever, it doesn't matter. Any form of authoritarianism needs to remove any alternate source of moral authority. Um, you can't have a moral authority except the state. So this is why they don't go after Christianity because they're Satanists. They go after Christianity because it provides a moral compass apart from the apparatus of the state, and that's what makes it a threat. Because you can't have, if you want people to be obedient, you don't just want, it's like 1984, you don't just want them begrudgingly obedient. You want them to believe that 2 plus 2 is 5 because you say it is, right? You want the
Yes.
state to be the moral authority, and actually in the case of 1984, the metaphysical authority, right? So you want the state to be that moral authority, and any system that provides an ethical structure that's not beholden to state power is a massive threat. So this is why Christianity needs to get stamped out immediately. They would stamp out Islam. They would stamp out Zoroastrianism. They'd
Yeah.
stamp out Zeus worship. It doesn't matter. They'll stamp it out because it's
That's
an
why, I mean, look at they're equally oppressing. I mean, they're oppressing the Uyghurs, the
right.
Muslim ethnic Muslim community. They're oppressing the Uyghurs and the Christians.
Yes. So I think, and by the way, here's my atheist plug for rational ethics. Um, I think the only thing that can actually unseat religions is rational ethics, because it's the ultimate decentralization of moral authority. Once once people understand, once rational ethics are understood, like a rational basis for individual rights are understood, anyone is their own moral compass. And that's extremely dangerous to a state. You can't wipe out. You can
Yeah.
wipe out a church. You can't wipe out reason in the mind of your population. That's
Yeah.
dangerous. And
Yeah, that's
so,
true.
like, it's the ultimate decentralization of moral authority, and that makes it the ultimate threat to communism. And if you'll notice, or any kind of authoritarianism, and if you'll notice, one of the ways that the Marxists try and prevent rational ethics from rising is by claiming that their system is the rational system, right? Which is not at all. There's like, I mean, in 2 seconds analysis, you can see that it's ludicrous and not even based on rational metaphysics. The whole thing's a mess, right? It has nothing to do with reason, but they pretend that it's the rational scientific thing. They use those words to try and undermine any kind of rational criticism of their system. It's kind of like saying, well, 97% of scientists agree. That's what the Marxists do. They're like, well, rational people agree that this is
Well,
our system. Right?
yeah. Well, they do the same thing with morality. It's not a moral system.
Right.
Totalitarianism, communism, Marxism, it's not moral, but to, like you said, to root out moral belief systems and try and claim this high ground as being the moral way of operating in the world.
Right.
They claim to be the moral, like look at the social justice movement into the Christian church. There's several social justice woke preachers I follow who are speaking lies. They're not speaking the gospel. They're speaking social justice. They're heretics.
Right.
But they are claiming that this is the more moral route.
Right.
This
That's even more
ideology that
effective than fighting it directly, is to undermine
right
it. Yeah.
is to undermine it, is to
Mm-hmm.
say this is the way to practice Christianity in this way that is completely contradictory to the gospel. This is moral.
Right.
They're trying to push the moral argument.
Right. Yeah.